This is a podcast in which two friends talk about the pleasures, absurdities, and imperfections of being human. I'm Simon Ellis.
And I'm Lee Miller. Welcome to Midlifing.
And this is one of those ones where I'm I just don't know. I just have to ask the question, really. But it's awkward because it kind of gets at, again, the language of, you talk about this current state. And does it feel like it can happen, or that it's something that's going to happen to you at any moment? Like, what's your relationship to your sense of it being something that's it's not quite the right word, but controllable or something? There's a question there about the idea of being on the receiving end of something, and also your kind of agency in this.
I think when I first had a depressive episode this year, when I came out of it, it was like, okay, it's behind me, and I can get on with my life, and it's going to be fine, because I had this when I was in Vienna, that first episode after the sound trauma. I had about 4 months. I didn't really seek help. I came out of it, and then I had long periods of being fine. And so I thought the same. I thought, okay, this is behind me. And then I had stresses that flipped me out again, and then I got out of it. And then it happened again, and then I'm like, okay, so now as I talk to you now, I'm more careful, and I'm not thinking it's behind me. It's more like I'm like, I don't perceive myself as being well. It's now I'm thinking about trying to understand what the triggers are and why it happens, and what adjustments can I make to either prevent, but if not prevent, at least reduce the severity. I thought I'd cracked it because I discovered this treatment pathway called ketamine treatment, and that is it's a dissociative anesthetic, and they noticed when applying it as an anesthetic that people would report, those that were depressed and received it reported having their depressive symptoms just lifted, and quite profoundly, and so I found clinics here I'm based in Norway, and I found clinics here, and I approached them, and I tried this therapy, and it was miraculous. It really did just kind of lift you. That pain in the center of your being suddenly lifted away, and the speed with which, so like previously the coming out of a depression had been kind of like a long process, and this was kind of like the reverse of it was like flipping the switch back. But then you're like, what am I a switch? Like, like with an on off, you could just flick me on and flick me off. It's like quite interesting to have such rapid changes. And but it was fantastic, and so it suddenly felt like, I'm back in life, and the change in the state, like, I think fear is such in my case at least, fear of life, of fear of failing, fear of not managing, were big elements. And then as you flip out of that state, it's like opening to the world, and not feeling so threatened, that you suddenly can see the world again as a place of potentiality and possibility, and
as opposed to fear.
yeah, exactly, and excitement. And also, like, as a creative human, my ability to think creatively coming back online, and it's like, wow, it's exciting to be alive. It's good to be alive, yeah. And then I felt myself kind of sliding, and I'm like, I need to get that ketamine again. And so I went back for it. That would have been my fourth. You have to do a number of treatments to try to get a more permanent effect. And it's recommended that if you use that therapy, that you combine it with talk therapy to because it's provoking a flexibility in your brain. So if you want to kind of reorganize how you think about things, it's opening that neuroplasticity up for that. So I did that. I got talk therapy alongside. Unfortunately, it wasn't very good.
The talk therapy wasn't very good.
Yeah, the talk therapy wasn't. They yeah. Anyway, that's.
You mean the therapist wasn't very good?
Yeah, they were kind of anti-ketamine and didn't know about it, and I'm like, yeah, but this is an important treatment pathway, and you're someone who's specialized in the human mind. If you don't know much about it, perhaps you should become knowledgeable, especially as you have a patient that's, anyway.
On that pathway.
Yeah, on that pathway. But it was a bit more like, anyway.
So you found yourself in a space advocating for a treatment that they were supposed to be within, rather than actually just being the recipient of the treatment.
Yes, yeah. That was because I was trying to combine public and private. So private ketamine, public psych.
Right.
And, but at the same time, I'm also grateful that it's possible to get public talk therapy. That's also something. But yeah. So then I felt myself sliding. I was starting to feel the stress of things tipping me over, and I went, okay, well, I'll organize this ketamine, and I went in for what would have been the fourth treatment, and I had a kind of anxiety attack in the treatment. And
during the treatment?
Yeah. And it's interesting. I mean, we can talk a bit more if you want about what a ketamine treatment is like, but there's something about allowing yourself to have this dissociative state, and to allow to there's a kind of disintegration of your sense of self. Yeah. And the first 3 times, that was rather incredible. And then this 4th time, because I was more anxious than I had been by the time I got to those ketamine treatments, it didn't work. And then I was doubly panicked, because this thing that I perceived as the answer for me wasn't possible, or it wasn't working.
Failure comes in, and then shame comes in behind failure, and
and the loss of hope. I think the well, in my very first ketamine treatment, there were 2 humans that kind of came to mind as I was what's the word? Yes, as I'm sort of, the borders of my body are dissolving, and the sense of your mind kind of opening into an expanse beyond physical limits. My wife came to me. She was there somehow in this experience. And then Thich Naht Hahn, who's a Zen Buddhist, was
nice party going on.
Yeah, it was a kind of interesting that they appeared. But one of the things that Thich Naht Hahn says, that hope is so important because it allows you to bear the hardship of the day, so whatever that is. And so if you lose that, then the burdens become feel as that they are unbearable.
It's so interesting. The times I've had, and the comparison's a little odious, of course, but the times I've had where I've had kind of we'd say out of body experiences, where there's a sort of such a strange idea where your sort of sense as if you're looking down at yourself or separated from your kind of bodily self, and mostly I've had those experiences in dancing. And they've all been pretty extraordinary, like a kind of like the positive side of your kind of ketamine treatment. But I've also noted them, and as I've been being in them, had the thought, wow, if you weren't kind of grounded in this, I could imagine this being terrifying. Right, that there was something about the potential of it to be totally kind of as if your world was slipping away from you in that kind of slightly out of body. And again, I'm not sure the comparison is right, but it just seems that line between something being overwhelmingly positive and overwhelmingly negative seems quite a surprisingly fragile line.
Yes, that certainly that's how it was that fourth time was I couldn't relax into that. I wasn't able to let go and go into that experience, because in some ways there's a loss of control, and perhaps that's what I was holding on to or something. I don't know. Yeah.
It sounds the other, and again, I'm a little bit. I'm worried about the comparisons again, but there's something you said earlier about, our kind of physical bodies and the way in which we are able to talk about, and that there's no kind of sort of sense of shame about, I've got a problem with. But you did, as you were talking about the change in your attitude from being something that was in your past to being something that you're effectively, that's part of you, that it was... There's something about, I remember years ago when, talking to someone about chronic back pain and the kind of episodes of really, debilitating back pain. And this person going, yeah, the sooner you get used to the idea that this is something that's ongoing, as opposed to something that you will be in your past, the better, because it means the way in which you, again, I'm not sure about the comparison here, but the way in which you look after yourself, the way in which you take care, means you're imagining the possibility of it happening all the time. And I don't know how that sits with you as a comparison.
I think that's quite a good comparison, because I think another element of that is if at some level when you're having back pain, there's a part of you that is not accepting it. Not accepting that reality. So there's a part of you that's in denial, that I don't want this, I want to beat it, I want it, and another quote that I'm fond of is, that which you can't accept, you can't move beyond. And I think that is definitely the case if you can, because if you're not accepting it, you're also stressed by it, and the stress itself amplifies your pain. So it's just another one of these frustrating double ups. Yeah. So and that was true of the tinnitus for me. Like the way out of the tinnitus, although I did seek treatments, and the way out of it was to shift attention away from it and to accept it. And actually that's also seems to be for me the pathway out of depression, is accepting it, and that it's here, but also trying to shift attention away from, this is the paradox, and this is the teachings of the Uroskolen, or the angst school of which is established by a therapist, Caspar Scheip. He was a physiotherapist and then a psychotherapist, and now he's founded this school. And the idea is that you try to get more control of your attention and bring yourself to the feelings that you are wanting to run away from. And that's the paradox. And by really focusing on actually what you are feeling and where it's located, and asking yourself or having someone guide you, can you bear that feeling just another 10 seconds? Can you be in that? You realize that two things happened. The thought loops, you're having a break from your thought loops because your attention is really with your body and is pulling you into the present, away from catastrophic thinking, anxiety about the future, or anger about the state you're in, or whatever. And then you just keep training that, and so the more you do it, the more you realize. And I think mindfulness and meditation are supporting skills, that you realize that you aren't the narratives that you tell yourself, even as much as you want.
This entire podcast is about us being the narratives we tell ourselves.
Yeah, as much as you want to believe them, and then So I found those teachings really helpful, and I think my hope is that that's the reason that I've come out of this without the aid of pharmaceuticals.
Go on, Lee.
I was just going to say it's interesting that you make that connection to mindfulness and meditation. I think Simon and I have talked about that at various points in the past, but that idea that we're not our thoughts, that we're witness to our thoughts, but they are not us, which I really struggle with, but also really try really hard to sit with as well. I'm just really curious about you not using pharmaceuticals this time around, and how sort of being able to on some level witness your thoughts and recognize them as separate to you. They're not essential. They're just a soundtrack. What's that been doing?
It creates a little bit of space, and there's a kind of recognition that there is a part of you that isn't your suffering, or there's a part of you that's a little bit independent, that's witnessing, or but is itself not that. So there's this space. But the other amusing thing, I think, is I've been talking to a friend who has been in this school for 12 years, and one of the things that they offer is a group, and that interestingly is gendered. So there are men's groups, and then there's women's groups, and there's someone leading it who's experienced in this perspective, some of which I've described to you, and they share their life troubles, and as they sit there and they listen to each other's stories, they don't buy into them. They don't buy into the narratives that each person is telling.
You mean the other people listening?
Yeah, the listening. They right. They can kind of from the outside see that it's a truth that's not. It's not reality, but it's this person's perception of it. And the fun thing is, my friend who he's been going to this for 12 years. He said, but when it comes to you and you're telling your story, you're like you want everyone to believe you. You want them to.
Each of us is I'm special.
Yeah,
I'm special.
Even though you've just sat through 5 other dudes whose stories and narratives that you don't buy in, when it comes to your own one, And when he said that, and I sort of recognized the truth of that, I felt my own connection to these narratives that I have been telling myself. I felt like
just loosened.
Yeah, I felt like they were like a suction cup on my forehead, and I almost feel like I heard the sound of it going, separating. Separating from, and then there's the space, and so Lee, that coming back to the space between those thoughts and the narrative, and also this thing of like, I don't need to necessarily buy into my own story or believe it. That also breaks the spell of of those negative thought loops, you know.
Wow.
But that's just, I just found, in a way, I found it so hilarious, you know. That,
Yeah.
Mm.
It is those extraordinary things about, I think where you go, there's effectively an enormous amount of evidence, and in this case, it's evidence right there in front of your face. You know, you can still, our capacity to still ignore that evidence. Oh no, this is different.
Yeah.
I am different.
Yeah,
I am different.
This truth is the truth.
Yeah. You guys, exactly. Matt, it's just really, it's quite moving for me listening to you, and but I love you dearly, and it's really special to hear you talking through these things and the complexity of it, and also with your with that beautiful wry sense of humour I've long known. Are there any other things, Matt, that you feel like that would be important to talk about, or what's anything that we've missed in terms of the kinds of things we've been asking you? I'm just saying this just in case, because it's not like we've done this before. And
I mean, I think the only thing is that if there's someone who's listening to this and is experiencing these things, that there shouldn't be any shame or stigma to seek help, and there is help, and there are really great treatment pathways and possibilities, and so it's just don't try to bear it alone. I think maybe that's another one of these potentially male ideas, this self-made human. We are not self-made. We're embedded in community and culture and friendships and things. And I think one of the reasons that I've had the struggles that I've had is because I shifted country and language and the immediacy of family bonds, all of these things that are all part of you. You're not we. I come back to Thich Naht Hahn. We interbe. We're not this. We're not as separate as we think we are, and so to plug into that and to really try to talk to your friends, and you'll be surprised. I mean, that's something I wanted to ask you two. Have you not had at least some periods of depression or struggles in your lifetime this far?
You want to go, Lee?
Well, I mean, I think probably anybody who's listened to the podcast will know that me and Bob lost 6 babies, and I think that was the closest I had. But I think although there were moments of deep despair, the despair was shared. So it wasn't something. First of all, it was something that wasn't sitting in my body. So there was a sense, and this is a really weird thing to say, but I mean it's quite a long time ago now. There was a sense of privilege of being able to be with Bob whilst she was dealing with the physical repercussions of multiple miscarriages and, in some instances, medical intervention. So there was a level of just reverence of being able to watch Bob physically recover, and there was something about the way that she was emotionally managing that at the same time sort of cast my despair into relief, which made it sort of shone a light on it and made it much more difficult to be in despair. I never stopped being angry. That was something I found really, really hard to let go of. I still find it, oh, what a shock. I still find it hard to let go of anger sometimes. Beyond that, and I think in a way, Matt, it's because these are so contextual, the moments that I'm talking about, they're in direct relationship to a thing that has happened. And they feel, I don't know if they felt at the time. I'm not sure that I have the capacity to give that kind of reflection. But certainly now they feel temporal. They were bounded by this sort of like sense of
clear cause.
Yeah, and also another pregnancy came along quite often, quite often, that sort of hit reset and created hope again, even though it didn't. The hope didn't yield a human being, but it can continue to yield hope.
Yeah, I'm sorry you've had to deal with that.
Thanks. Likewise, and I am, like Simon, incredibly grateful that you've been able to make the space to talk to us about it, because it does feel like, it feels like a gift.
Yeah, nothing to add. I mean, I know you asked us both. I think the short answer is no, and I'm going to say that partly to be brief, but also because a lot of my questions, I use the word naive because and that's partly why I was expressing such curiosity about the feeling of it. And so because I don't know the feeling you're describing, and so that's why I kept reaching for comparisons, useful or not. I've certainly had periods in my life where, and a little bit the same as Lee, where that, in this sense, quite a clear thing has happened, and my response to that has mostly, I would say, to feel down and to seek solitude. And to kind of, I think I have a tendency to wallow in it, meaning it feels more like it's a choice to wallow in it.
It may be, but it may also be a necessity.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. And it's been a long time since.
I think the last thing that also listening, Lee, to your story, and the hardship to bear in that, I experienced that also with my wife, and having a miscarriage with what would have been our first human. But this is an interesting thing. There's something about maybe for this idea that our lives should go the way we expect them to, or want them to, and how unrealistic that is when we look at the world and we see how messed up it is. But somehow we're going to be exempt from that in our own lives, which is highly
special.
Yeah, exactly. Again, another like this example, but that's not life, unfortunately. But somehow, and like there's so much kind of stuff out there trying to sell us stuff to optimize, but like you can't optimize it all,
What a ferociously generous guy.
Yeah, he's also, I know he's going to be listening to this, but also just one of the most gentle and kind human beings. So I'm going to just say humans, like he was saying. I know, and I really, it's, he knows this, but, and I don't want to kind of bang on about it because, it's him, it's happening to him, but it's that slight feeling of how is it that I might best help this person, and that strange feeling as a person of feeling a little bit helpless in that situation. So helpless about the helplessness, if you understand what I mean. So,
well, what Matt said after we finished recording was that he was grateful that you had at least tried. You had tried to reach out. So that sense of helplessness.
Yeah, just And no, exactly, and I don't. That's really important. I don't. But I think I actually took this from you. There was something I remember at a certain time where you just send photographs, little photographs of things, and that's what I started doing. I just send a little photograph and saying, "Oh, I just noticed this morning and thought of you." So it wasn't. I was never asking about or, and so yeah. But I just what a special person, and I really do think. I'm just thinking about the New Zealand Mail thing, but how brave that is to do this in this not potentially public, but very, very public.
Oh, yeah, I know. I know we joked about the idea that nobody listens, but we do actually have listeners, and we do have people around the world, and we do have people who we don't know. So it's exposing in so many ways.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Matt doesn't.
And
Yeah.
he did, and there'll be stuff
Yeah.
in the show notes, of course, about if people are listening and that need some help or where to call or to look up. But I think even just having people listen to this, or if you think of someone, I'm talking to listeners now, if you think of someone that might benefit from or might enjoy hearing these stories or this story, the way Matt's describing his experiences, then, please do share this. Not that I sound like I'm now spruiking our podcast. Shit! Cut that out.
No, but I was going to say no, because I was going to say the same thing, and I realised the thing I was formulating in my head was this will be a really good episode to share with people who don't listen to us, and not because this will get them hooked and they'll want to start listening to us, but actually it's the least Simon and Lee conversation, and it's probably the one that has most value to people beyond us. So it is absolutely one to share.
Yeah.
Anyway, brilliant. Thanks so much for being so generous and sharing your beautiful connection with Matt, with me, and by extension with everybody else. So it was really lovely.
Yeah. Thanks to you, and thanks to Matt. Bloody awesome, mate.